Okay, it's time for Ezekiel Kralen's story. This is the continuing story of the two little dogs, Flaco and Lucky, and lately it's more about other things besides that, and I can see that just skimming down here, I'm not sure what this is about. We'll find out together. Every little endorphin boost counts. Part 2 of 2, Ezekiel Kralen wrote. Email correspondence, April 22nd and 23rd. Subject, brilliant. So glad I went. Continued. Date, April 22nd. And with that, she nodded and walked away to confer with Prentice while I returned to my seat near the corner. Scene 4. The Hispanic Angel. An elderly Mexican or Central American woman sat beside me as I waited to talk to a personal injury attorney. She was thin in a healthy way, and dressed in a long gray coat with large buttons and a colorful scarf upon her head. Of cheerful disposition, she made me feel glad to have her beside me. After chirping away with a fellow seated on her right, her son perhaps, she turned to address me in English. Her accent was strong, thus difficult to comprehend, but it went something like this. They weren't much help at that other place. They didn't know what to do with me. Then, after wasting my time with too many frustrating visits, they finally sent me here. Now I hope things will go better. It looks like they will. I smiled in response, having already lowered my mask while conferring with my intake worker, tapped her shoulder and said, that happens sometimes. I know because it did to me too, recently. But for the most part, these are excellent people who work hard on our behalf. You just got to stick with it and you'll be fine. Oh, thank you for saying that, she replied with a nudge. I know you're right. I feel very optimistic today. At that point in our conversation, an intake agent, yet another tall, skinny young fellow holding a clipboard, came up to her and said, the attorney is ready to discuss her case. He's right over here, and pointed at a table where a friendly old codger in a blue-gray shirt and black tie with shiny pink dots waved at her. She then stood up, brushed some crumbs off her coat, smiled at me, and addressed the agent. This is a good man. Be sure he gets all the legal help he needs. The gangly assistant grinned at that and took her by the arm. Muchas gracias y buena suerte, Patil, I replied. Off they went. I'm sure I said that wrong. I'm doing the best I can here. Scene 5, the personal injury angel. Okay, I get what's happening, said Prentice after hearing my speedy outline of the lawsuit and my opposition to it. You're poor, you're broke, you don't have a pot to piss in. Well, I was about to say, yes, I do, and it's right beside the cupboard beneath my sink, but he rumbled on. You're immune to their wicked schemes. They can't touch you, and that, my friend, is what judgment proof is all about. I almost slid off my chair in hilarity, but managed a clever bon mot of my own. God bless the unrepentant flower children of this world. Right, nicely said, he replied. Looks to me like the plaintiff is trying to go through you to get to the pot of gold at the end of a blah-blah's rainbow. I'm stunned you saw through their plot so quickly, I exclaimed. Oh, I've been at this personal injury business for over 35 years, he boasted. I certainly do know a thing or two about scoundrels. So that was just a taste of Prentice for your delectation, Watson. The guy's off the chart. He's a heavy-set fellow, around 68 years old, 6 feet tall, with spiky patches of yellow-gray hair, clumps of which pointed left, some right, and one upward. Lucky him, not a bald spot anywhere. He only spent 15 minutes with me, but boy, what a wallop that was. Nonetheless, pleased to see how determined I am to right this wrong, and that I was already prepared to register and deliver the appropriate forms. He assured me, yes, general denial is the right way to handle this. It will trigger a long delay in the lawsuit. They'll have to prove every one of their complaints to the judge, and since, as you say, they're either grossly exaggerated, childishly subjective, or outright lies, most likely plaintiff's attorney will drop the case like a hot potato once he reads your denial. You already know what little he thinks about the plaintiff's attorney from an earlier missive, so I'll skip repeating that here. He recommended LARC's other clinic, located in the Bayview district, because most of the personal injury attorneys gather there instead of this location. I'm actually there myself more often than here, he noted. So I should just ask for Prentice? I queried. Yes, you can do that, he declared, but all the attorneys are excellent and will serve you well. Sidebar. I have since learned the Bayview Clinic is open on the fourth Friday of every month, while the one on Golden Gate Avenue is held the third Friday each month. So hopefully the roughly 3-week gap in each month will not thwart any urgent need for counseling. Before departing, he said it must be grueling what they're putting me through. I told him not at all. I take it as just another adventure, an opportunity to meet people of good merit who I would have never encountered otherwise, and I get to check out one of the few neighborhoods in San Francisco I have yet to visit. He then commended me for such a great attitude, patted me on the shoulder, and rushed off. Scene 6. The exit. Upon leaving the conference room, I decided to use the commode, so I turned left and then right, whereupon I noticed a triangular blue sign on each of the 3 doors, or was it 4, that announced in a bold white font, "Please choose a restroom that best matches your gender identity." So, of course, this old-school pilgrim unabashedly chose door number 1, men. The world has changed, Watson, but not yours truly, because I was already way ahead of the game the moment I slid through that gloppy birth canal like a cannonball down an abandoned waterslide, and glob Bess San Francisco like a phoenix G shall rise again, once the dragon from my Randolph/Larkin tail topples the Transamerica Pyramid, unless that pretentious pinhead of an edifice opens its doors to the houseless, first. Brilliant. So glad I went. Date April 23rd. Watson wrote, "You're firing on all 17 cylinders. Masterful and evocative. I was there." I replied, "Thank you. I'm still reeling from the incredible energy and inspiration of my LARC adventure." Or should I say Larkin adventure, because somehow I believe he's behind it, as I suspect he has been for all my previous adventures since we first met back in 2005. And don't forget Larkin Street, just a half block from 333 Golden Gate, where it intersects, not to mention Disneyland's animated dragon going up in flames the very same day I felt inspired to append my illustrator S. Rohan's exquisite drawings of a dragon from my book Free Me From This Bond. Though that stuff is minor and perhaps coincidental compared to the stunning implications of this latest episode, for it was the good people at LARC who gave me this remarkable story to take to keyboard and share with the world. So kudos to all those amazing souls. And there may be a very good reason why my intake angel was a diminutive clone of my eviction attorney, which I thought struck me like a thunderbolt earlier today. She could very well be her friggin' daughter following in her mother's footsteps career-wise. Or maybe she really is 14 years old, because probably an honor student who skipped some years. Wouldn't that be something, Watson? And it certainly gives more credence that they would... I'm sorry, I lost my place moving the file around. Let me just make sure I can... And it certainly gives more credence that they were all actors at LARC for my own benefit and no one else's. It was all a setup, Watson, and that's why my eviction attorney led me to the SF bar, which intentionally screwed me because it's in the damned script, and finally led me to the LARC festival where I got to meet her daughter, among other excellent folks. They also wanted me to figure things out by my lonesome in order to prepare me for bigger things of a legal nature, which I will now reveal. So where is this going to take me, good doctor? What direction am I most likely headed after shutting down the lawsuit? Here is the vision that showed me the way this morning. Quite possibly, I made ripples about SF Bar's failure to assist me in finding an attorney through my intake angel, who might discuss this with my eviction attorney, Magdalena Elphinsborn, if indeed she is her mother, or another attorney there at LARC. I also brought this up to Prentice, so we'll see. In which case I hope SF Bar will see the light and rectify this frightening situation, since false complaints of personal injury against the poor and other vulnerables are quite common, I'm sure. So this is a major flaw, a huge gap, for those legal services dedicated to the very low income and homeless. No excuse for this. There's emphasis on some of the words by them being entirely capitalized. I'm not really sure if I'm reading this right. I'm doing the best I can. Personally, I find it rather hokey and disillusioning that legal counsel through LARC and other places, I presume, seem not to be aware that most, if not all, pro bono services do not take on personal injury cases. You'd think they'd know this right off the bat, instead of rifling through pages and referring them to this or that group and telling the applicant to contact them and ask if they'll take their case, which only serves to send them off on a wild goose chase, passing the buck, brushing them off, if you will. So that's what I'm thinking, where I may be headed, or that my LARC adventure will catapult my activist reputation just by the other ripples I've created by expressing my peaceful philosophy overall and with clever badinage to charm their hearts in a very real way. Attending that LARC event served very well as a tool for self-promotion. Now, this is funny. Just a few minutes ago, when I was working on the third paragraph above, I heard Larkin's voice from across the street. He was hollering some funny stuff which words I couldn't make out. He's been doing that a lot these past few weeks, though I didn't realize it was actually Larkin until moments ago when I looked out the window and discovered, yep, that was him. And isn't it curious that Deke has not shown up since the day of my LARC appointment, as if he knew I needed all this time alone to gird my mental loins and prepare for battle, because he's part of the acting crew himself. That is one of my bodhisattva protectors. I mean, who is this guy, really, to have brought such stupendous doggies into my life that have changed my world in such astonishing ways? It makes our heads spin. Signed, Zeke K. Holmes. P.S. You missed a great opportunity to toss a pun into the ring like so. Zeke, your description of the carpet absolutely floored me.